My name is Donna Sherman. I'm from Public Partnerships, and I want to welcome everybody to our second New Jersey Self-Direction Pre-Conference, where we are going to talk about the history of New Jersey. And there is so much amazing history in New Jersey regarding self-direction. And so I'm so glad that we have this great speakers and families who, pre-recorded some videos that you get to hear their stories, really amazing stuff that we're going to get to hear today. So I'm very excited. This really, for me, this has been a passion project in that, Marion Solino and I got together at Starbucks to have coffee several times as strangers and really have become professional colleagues and friends, and decided, let's resurrect this New Jersey Self-Direction Conference. It was around before us. Many people that are probably on the call today are familiar with it, and we appreciate them starting it, and we've just decided to resurrect it. And we've included and extended the partnership with, with Easter Seals, with the Bog Center, who's been supporting us, and definitely the BD Council. A really big thank you to them for the grant that they have provided to us so that we can hold this conference virtually and at no cost to those that are joining. So really great big thank you there. I want to just talk logistically about if folks can really just not unmute themselves. We're trying to keep it so that we can get all of the content out there and allow all of the speakers the time that they need. And we will open up the chat option at certain points within our presentation. We do have closed captioning accessible and enabled on the Zoom conference. We do have our interpreters, and we thank them for joining us as well. We are going to be starting our presentation off with, so excited, been working with them for a while. I get to work with Suzanne Christ. She is like a gem at Public Partnerships. She has so much amazing experience, has been at the forefront of this since the very beginning, has worked with Bill Ditto. She was doing Arkansas, he was doing New Jersey. She helps us at Public Partnerships and our leaders with policy and, how we can evolve programs and what's going on, with CMS. She has a lot of great connectivity and partnerships with so many great leaders of the movement of self-direction. So, again, I'm excited to introduce Suzanne. We're going to have Bill Ditto, who has come back to us from retirement because this has been his passion in his life, and Suzanne will give him a rightful introduction. We have videos, and we also have someone who will be speaking after Bill and letting us know about his story. He was a part of this program since the inception, even before, and has watched it evolve and is still a participant as well. We have for you Jonathan Seafried, who's going to let you know what's going on currently, where we want to go. So jam-packed agenda today, really excited to be here. Wanted to just let you know that we are going, we're just folks who are working, our regular job, putting this conference together. So please forgive any errors in spelling or things like that. We're doing our very best, and we really appreciate everybody joining and everyone's patience and flexibility. Everyone that's speaking, it's their own opinions, and are just trying to bring color to the topic. And I would also just like to say that if you do go on chat, if you could just be mindful about putting PHI out there, anything confidential, because this is being recorded. And so we just want to make sure that people's information is secure. Okay. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Suzanne and have them get started. Thank you so much.
Okay, Donna. Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. I am always impressed with things that New Jersey does, and this is just one part of that good impression that I have. You also have beautiful beaches. You also have Bill Ditto that we'll talk about in just a second, and you've also been one of the leaders in implementing effective programs for people with chronic illnesses. Um, New Jersey, let's talk about New Jersey. New Jersey began experimenting with consumer directed services in 1985. That's a long time ago. It began by implementing a small pilot program aimed at offering people with disabilities a chance to control their lives and personal care services through self-direction. Self-direction is called, at that time, it was called consumer direction. In the mid-2000s, CMS coined the term participant direction, but currently the term is self-direction now, but it all is interchangeable. The Cash and Counseling Demonstration and Evaluation Program, funded by the Robert Foundation and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, was designed to test the concept of allowing individuals with Medicaid eligibility to receive a budget to hire their own caregivers and manage and direct the care they receive in lieu of getting services from a personal care or home health agencies. 3 states were selected to help design and implement cash and counseling, and they were Arkansas, Florida, and New Jersey. The goal was to mount a large-scale demonstration program serving people of all ages who required personal care due to a disability or a chronic condition. The study also was designed to analyze and evaluate the outcomes of both personal and systemic levels. Today, I will be interviewing Bill Ditto, the former director of the New Jersey Division of Disability Services and the project director for the New Jersey Cash and Counseling Demonstration called the Personal Preference Program. I've known Bill for 25 years and continue to be impressed with his passionate advocacy for people with disabilities. With all the people involved with cash and counseling, Bill was the one that national conferences requested his presence to present on self-direction. And this is in large part due to his dynamic speaking style and energy on the topic of giving people more control and power over the things that matter to them. It's truly a pleasure to have known you all these years, Bill, and I look forward to more time in the future to spend with you. So today we'll learn about how New Jersey has moved from a small state-funded pilot program to a statewide Medicaid personal care option serving 1.2 million people, and how this concept has influenced other government programs serving New Jersey residents. So Bill, let's start by talking about New Jersey back in 1985 and hearing about those early days of exploring consumer direction.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction. I am pleased to be here today and pleased to be able to share some of the history of participant-directed and consumer-directed services in the state of New Jersey. It has been a very interesting period in my life to be able to work on these programs and to see them actually flourish, which, when you mention the number of people who are presently being served in the personal preference program, it's quite gratifying. We have our beginnings really started prior to 1985 in one sense, and that is that at the time that I became involved in this, I was a supervisor of social work for a county board of social services in New Jersey. And one of my frustrations was that many of my clients could only get services from provider agencies, And the provider agencies controlled basically everything that happened to people. And in addition to that, they were not flexible in terms of hours of service or when people needed help. And it was very frustrating. And they also, the agencies themselves came up with rules that really had no basis in administrative law or anything else in terms of government. These are agency things that they had come up with, policies that were creating a problem. So I got involved with a senator from the state of New Jersey, and also a good friend of mine, John Del Colli, who was then working for Eastern Paralyzed Veterans Association. And we met in a diner in Monmouth County, and we had a discussion about how to do something to make services more available to people with disabilities who, of all ages, who were either working or going to school or otherwise preparing to work or volunteering actively in the community. And so we managed to get a piece of legislation through the state that created a pilot program. And I'm using some terms here that people would now consider somewhat offensive. So just bear with me because this is historical. It was called the Personal Attendant Demonstration Program, because back in those days, that's what people were referred to as personal attendants. We don't use that term anymore. But we started out with 10 counties in New Jersey. And of course, there are 21 counties in New Jersey. So this pilot was intended to see, how could this work? How would it happen? How would it be done? And one benefit to us was that the state legislature allocated money to us to do this project. So it was purely state funded. We hadn't gotten involved with the Medicaid programs yet. We were a state-funded program, and we were aimed at serving people who did not qualify for Medicaid coverage because of income or assets, and who wanted to and needed to have more flexible services. So that pilot in 10 counties was quite an undertaking, and the New Jersey Department of Human Services really had been unaware of the legislation. And so they came to me and asked me if I would entertain coming to the wonderful state capital of Trenton and working at the department to implement this 10-county pilot. And so I took up the challenge because I thought this is really something I have my heart in and something I think could make a big difference. Pilot was very successful, and subsequently the legislature passed another piece of legislation that made the program statewide, permanent, and gave us a permanent appropriation. So that's what was going on in 1985.
Wow, that's amazing. So New Jersey, I know in California and in Massachusetts, they had a form of self-direction, but it sounds like New Jersey was the forerunner of self-direction. And today it has one of the largest programs in the nation. So we're real proud of New Jersey. I bet there were challenges and successes in implementing these pilots. Can you share some of them with us?
Oh, sure. Yep. There were some challenges, and there were quite a few of them, and quite a lot of things that had to be decided upon to make it work. The first area was like, just who are we going to serve? Well, we did know that we were going to start with a population of people, mostly younger disabled people, but not exclusively. I'm a big believer that the term disability applies to people throughout the lifespan. And that so seniors to me are also persons with disabilities when they have limitations that impair their ability to function. Not everybody shares that view, but that's my personal view of it. And so one of the things that we had to do was to say, who are we going to serve? So we said, let's definitely serve people going to college because they need these support services. And in these early days, there were very few schools in the state that had dormitory facilities for students with disabilities. So we wanted to make sure that those students would get the necessary personal care services to be able to live in those dorms or to live at home and commute back and forth. We also wanted to help people that were preparing for employment, that were in training programs or other things that were preparing them for employment. And then we wanted to also support those people that were actively employed. Then the challenge came that there were also people who, because of the benefits they received, were not really able to accept were not able to really accept a paid position because it would have discontinued Social Security benefits or other things that they had gotten. So we decided to include also individuals who were active volunteers in their community. So people that just couldn't accept a paid position, but maybe put in 30, 25, 40 hours a week in a volunteer position would also be included in the program. Then we had to develop regulations, and the regulations were a bear because you have to think of all sorts of things that you never really ever thought of before. As you know, Suzanne, from cash and counseling, it seemed like every time you moved forward, you moved back a little because you suddenly realized there was another problem. One of the interesting things that happened, which I can now talk about in New Jersey, thanks to the passage of the marijuana legalization laws in the state, is that I was interviewed by the DD Council for a magazine that they published. And so I'm being interviewed and I'm, just talking away and giving all these things. And so in the course of it, I said, one of our dilemmas is if somebody needs a joint rolled, like, is that appropriate for the personal assistant to do? Is this something, should they be able to do it or shouldn't they be able to do it? So, and I just was sort of talking to this interviewer, very casually. Well, I never saw the article before it was published, but when the magazine came out, I heard from everybody because everyone had read about my comments about rolling a joint. And I was, I had quite a lot of calls and comments from people. So that was one very interesting part of it. The other thing is that we needed to develop a sliding fee scale because our funding wasn't infinite. We had to make sure that we could serve as many people as possible. And developing a sliding fee scale, as I learned, is not an easy thing. We had a lot of resistance from counties, not the 10 counties in the original pilot, but when we expanded it statewide, we had one county, which will remain nameless, where they informed me that they had no persons with disabilities in their county. So I found this quite amazing. And we had really, I and several people that I hired had to go all around the state trying to convince these county government officials to let us implement the program, in their county. It was like pulling teeth in some instances, but we got through it. I think that we came out the other side with a program that was solid, a program that worked, and we were very happy because we were using a model in which the individual was actually hiring their own people to work for them of their choice. And then they were sending in basically an invoice or a timesheet to county government. And then county government was issuing a check to them. So this was great. And we were like, oh, this is, just what we wanted. This is just how we envisioned it. Until the Internal Revenue Service became involved and landed on Union County in the northern part of the state and informed them that they were in violation of IRS regulations. and that these workers could not be considered independent contractors. And all of a sudden, we were faced with a real problem. One by one, every single county moved back to hiring agencies to deliver the service rather than having the consumers select their own employees. And it was very, very difficult, but we were determined to continue on. We tried to work with home care agencies and personal care agencies who understood what we were trying to do, and we had mixed results. But nevertheless, this program exists until today and is still serving people who do not qualify for Medicaid personal care services, but who may get some Medicaid personal care services, but not a sufficient amount to meet their individual needs.
Fascinating. Thank you, Bill. You know, one important thing, and we'll probably touch on this as we go through our questions, but one important thing that Cash and Counseling did do is it kind of cracked the egg for how to manage employment law and regulations, labor law and IRS. Absolutely. And so for that, we have probably Sue Flanagan to thank for actually figuring all of that out. So that's good. So let's move on to Cash and Counseling. Why did New Jersey want to participate in this program?
Well, I'll tell you, there were a number of reasons why we were very enthusiastic when the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation announced that they were going to select a group of states to mount a national demonstration program with an evaluation component. And because we had been working in this area, we basically thought, gee, we're well positioned to do this. And the reasons that we got into it have a lot to do, I guess, with my experience in working with people and in working with and looking into the future as well. First of all, one reason was better use of resources. We really believed that we could make better use of Medicaid dollars if we were in a position to allow individuals to manage and hire people of their choosing to help them. I was also aware that even in those days when Cash and Counseling started, there was already a worker shortage going on. Now, it wasn't as extreme as it has become, but I looked into the future and I said, the baby boom generation, of which I am a proud member, is marching forward. And we are going to end up in a situation where there are not enough people there to provide care in the formal system. So we need to be looking at a new workforce, a workforce composed of family and friends and neighbors, and any number of different people that one might come into contact with. I also wanted to increase customer satisfaction. Our clients in the Medicaid personal care program, which was a very long-standing program in New Jersey, really had a frustrating time because for many people, they needed a few hours in the morning and a few hours in the evening. They didn't need anybody in the middle of the day. But the way agencies structured their services, which I understood from an economic standpoint, they wanted a block of time, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, whatever. But this doesn't really meet the needs of people. Most agencies wouldn't start people working until 7 o'clock in the morning at the earliest, and most of them did not have staff that worked after 5 or 5:30 in the afternoon. So right away, we're in a situation where the needs of people aren't going to be met. I also thought that it would be important to be able to let people differentiate between the workers that they hired. And of course, one of my famous quotes, which have been used many times over and over, was, "It doesn't take a nurse to operate a Hoover." You can operate a vacuum with really minimal training. I myself have been very successful doing it. And I just felt that we were just not making good use of the personnel that were out there. I would rather conserve those people for frail, elderly, isolated people with little social connections, where it would be crucial for them to have the services of a trained aide and a nurse overseeing things in order to live safely in the community. So all of these things sort of came together in my mind to say there's a way we can do this that makes sense. And so that's how we really started out, and we were delighted when the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation selected us and said, yes, you can come aboard.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think our first meeting was in San Francisco in 1996. Does that ring a bell?
I think you're right.
I think yeah. I
It's a
thought
great place to have a meeting.
it's a wonderful place to have a meeting, but when they introduced all the things that we really had to do and not giving us any kind of hints as to how to do them, it was we had some time at the bar together. so
What happens at the bar stays at the bar.
Right. So as the Arkansas project director for Cash and Counseling, I know there were challenges as we built and implemented the state's demonstration program. What were some of the issues and concerns for you in New Jersey, and how did you deal with those?
Okay, well, somewhat unlike Arizona, New Jersey had always had a very robust group of home care agencies, both personal care agencies and home health agencies. And they were also very, very highly regulated. And they were used to doing all of the business basically with the state Medicaid program. I mean, that they were the players, and the state required certain conditions and certifications, and the aides had to be certified homemaker home health aides, and they had to be under the supervision of a registered nurse. So when we started to talk about the program and tried to explain the program to people, we got a tremendous amount of pushback. And the home care agencies in particular were just beside themselves. They thought this was terrible. It's unsafe. New Jersey has worked for centuries practically to get, safe home care services and regulated services in place. And here you are, you're going to just give people money and let them go out and hire whomever they want. This is just awful, So they were very unhappy with me for the most part. But I will say that some of their provider associations were a little more open to the idea, especially when I pointed out to them that we were not going to take away much of their market share. It was a demonstration. It was a program that was going to see how this works. It's not like suddenly they would lose all of their clients. And that helped to some extent. The public and other places where I went, the first thing they said to me was fraud and abuse. You're giving people money, they'll be in Atlantic City, they'll be drinking, they'll be hiring prostitutes, they'll be gambling, I mean, really, it was, and they were just, this is the most irresponsible thing I've ever heard, and I've ever heard of. I can't believe the state is so doing this ridiculous thing. So it took such a long time to convince them that we are smart enough to know how to build safeguards into programs. And as you know, Suzanne, we did struggle to figure out just how to do that, which is how we really got to the point of having, fiscal intermediary services and what we called it bookkeeping support, basically, for people, so that they weren't actually getting the cash, but they were managing a budget. And that was an important distinction. Once we started telling people that lessened some of the problem, when they understood that there was somebody who was that the individual wasn't getting cash to, just go out and do whatever they wanted to do. I think also we tried to send out a message that the people that were going into this program were people that really need this help. They are not going to be using this money for anything else when they need daily, consistent help. And we also tried to point out that they could stretch their dollars much further because they could hire one person to do the food shopping and the laundry or operating the vacuum cleaner. They could hire another person who did the personal care services, where the relationship between the individual and the personal care employee is a crucial factor. And so we got around, some of that, but it was very hard to get people to understand the kind of safeguards that we were building into the program. We also had people who felt that this program was something that would not last, that it was something temporary. It'll just be a demonstration and then, it will go away. So that's kind of, when we first implemented, that's kind of, those were kind of our biggest issues. And I will discuss another issue, but when we talk about the evaluation component for the project, that was another thing of concern.
Okay, so let's move to the evaluation component. Mathematica Policy Research, which is a big think tank, it was responsible for the evaluation. And there were many rigorous things that state administrators had to make sure were involved in the design of the program, design and implementation of the program. So it was quite a crucial component of the demonstration. And there were some stumbling blocks, of course, but in the end, the research results were extremely positive. Can you talk a little bit about that and your thoughts on the research evaluation findings?
Well, I think probably the biggest stumbling block for us at the beginning was the fact that the evaluation had been designed as using a randomized controlled design. And this was actually, from a research standpoint, extremely important, because in order to inform public policy and in order to assure people that this program model, that this service delivery model was a good one, we had to have one group of people who continued to receive the regular agency-based services and another group of people who were in the demonstration. It's very hard in human services to do a randomized controlled design study, because what we had to do was we had to interest people in the program, as you know. We had to get them to sign up affirmatively that they wanted to participate. And then we had to let them know that their information was going to be sent in to the research center, and that a computer would randomly assign them either to the treatment group, which is the people that get the services under the demonstration, or the control group, the people that actually, were going to continue with agencies. It was painful. It was difficult. It was, it impeded our enrolling people in the demonstration. People would call me up on the phone and say, my next door neighbor got into this program. And why didn't I get in? I'm just like her. There's no difference. And I had to try to explain this randomized thing to them, and it made things very difficult. And New Jersey had a very slow enrollment, to be perfectly honest, because I think a lot of people were turned off by the idea that they had a 50-50 chance of ending up, and some people were really desperate. Some people were not getting the services, the level of services that they should have gotten. And I think in Arkansas, you had definitely seen that people were going without services, who should have been getting them, who had probably been approved for them, but never got anything. And in New Jersey, people were more likely to be getting some service, but they weren't getting service that they were terribly happy with.
Mhm.
However, it was worth it in the long run because the results of the research were splendid. There was a decided increase in satisfaction, not only among the individual who was receiving the service, but also the family members and others who were providing the services to them. Much greater satisfaction. There were much better health outcomes for the people that were in the treatment group. They actually had less hospitalizations, they had fewer nursing home admissions, and they were most often able to remain in place and continue their lives in the way they wanted to. We also found that people were using less medication than before, which was somewhat of a surprising outcome, but nevertheless a good one. People were not going to emergency rooms as frequently because they were getting the care that they needed the way they wanted it. And the other thing is, we knew that once we got past the evaluation, we would be able to throw the gates open and invite all the people who had previously gone into the control group to be able to participate in the demonstration. And for once, we could all hold our heads high and say, this is something that really works. This is something that is helpful. It's something that is doable. It's something that's manageable. And it's something that we have to be doing at this time in our history. It didn't make sense to do anything else. There were other countries, European countries, that were way ahead of where we were in the United States with consumer directed or participant directed services. So I think that was, and you might want to chime in if you're thinking of other results from the research. Those were my highlights.
Right. I think you covered them all. I know in Arkansas, when we looked at utilization of more expensive services, for example, ER visits and hospitalizations, they were down about 17% because people were actually receiving personal care that they were assessed to need. And those services prevented the use of high cost services then.
Right, right.
So, and Donna, I think we have time for one more question, would you say?
Yes, I would. I was just, yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So let's go to the last question, Bill, and thanks so much for all of this valuable
Listen,
information.
I'm so pleased to do it.
Yes. In your opinion, what impact did the success of Personal Preference Program have on other services and supports for the people of New Jersey?
Well, I have to tell you, this is one of the projects that I worked on that when I retired, I felt like I had really accomplished something in my professional career. And I have since kept my eyes open and my ears open, and I watch what's going on. I have various informants who tell me about developments in state government. And I am delighted to say that in almost every government-funded program in the state of New Jersey, there is an option for self-direction. They vary a little in terms of exactly how they operate and exactly what they allow or don't allow, but the option is there. And with the advent of managed care taking over the long-term care services system, the community-based system in New Jersey, we have found that most of the consumers, most of the people who are enrolled in the managed care, Medicaid managed care plan have opted to come into personal preference, for instance, and that's why you see that fairly significant number. And I look at the other divisions. I look at the Division of Aging Services, where we see there are options now within their structure. The Division of Developmental Disabilities, which you're all going to hear more about in a little bit, has also also, jumped on the bandwagon. And we see that, I think that the fact that we were able to do this and were able to gain, national recognition, and we were going all over the country talking to other states that wanted to do this program. So there were a whole other set of states, they were called the replication states, that used the models that we had developed and went ahead to do it. But in New Jersey, I just feel so proud and so happy that people have so many options available to them.
Good, good. Well, Bill, we appreciate your time. And I think we're going to move on to you're introducing Tom, and we're going to hear from a person who actually has used the services for years now.
Yes. It is my distinct pleasure to have one of our longtime participants. He started with regular home health services. He came on the initial pilot programs in the state, and he continued right on into cash and counseling. He is a very talented and a very impressive guy, and his name is Tom Spadaro. Welcome, Tom.
You're on mute, Tom.
One second, Tom.
Yeah.
My hands are too fast.
Okay, you're all right now.
Paralysis gets in the
You're
way. But anyway, yes, thank you very much, Bill, for everything that you've, all your ideas and the hard work that you and Suzanne and everyone else done over the years. It's made a huge difference for all of us. And but it just, I had flashbacks of some of the things that you were just saying about the how it was. I started I had spinal cord injury back in 1979, and in 1980 I was able to come home. So I did live in an institution for a year and a half. So I learned the how your quality of life or lack of quality of life was like living in an institution, and then coming home, but then coming home to home care, which was great to go to an agency, but it was really cumbersome. The rules that the agencies had were just so they just drove me nuts, because you were just so stuck in your bedroom. And so, in 1985, when we first had the idea, I was in one of the counties where they allowed the self-direction. And it's when I graduated high school, I was able to go to college. And it gave me the ability to start lecturing in schools. And I did it for 27 years. And being limited to an agency for so long was very challenging. Trying to find the right people, and if you could find anybody at all. And then finally, when it was opened up to hiring whoever you needed, or if you had people in your home, where, for instance, I had my family members doing most of my care for me, and they were the ones who deserved to be paid. And I had neighbors who take care of me, and others. And so finally, it just evolved to where I was able to hire people who were taking care of me anyway. The people who knew me, it was much safer that way with my care. My care is so complicated with my paralysis, being on a ventilator. There's so many challenges that I do have. To be given a chance to know somebody and train them how to take care of you properly. So you get people who do all the medical things, and then people who you can have other people who do the cleaning of your home, and to just be able to train people and having the flexibility to hire people when you wanted them, when you needed them, and for different reasons was so important. Yeah, and the other thing was these crazy rules that some of the agencies have. Like you'd have an aide that would work with you And after 3 months, they had this philosophy that if you were with them more than 3 months, that they were going to become attached to you. Therefore, we're going to have somebody else come to your house. So right when you get somebody trained, boom, you kick them out over again. It happens again and again and again. So yes, when you got the Bill's idea, it really changed so much because you would hire somebody, and people you would hire, they prefer to work with somebody and get a regular schedule and be with the same person. And you could develop a relationship, and there wasn't any fraud, and nobody was stealing anything. The thing that was given was the opportunity to go to college, the opportunity to work, the opportunity to advocate for the disabled community, the opportunity to speak to legislators, to inform them. Because if I was living in the hospital at the time back in 1980, it would cost about $150,000 a year compared to what the care that I was getting at home. Around $30,000 a year. And you know, it's been time we had to work with these myself, and we had to ask a lot of questions to Bill, myself and other people from the advisory council that we put together. The consumers to try to educate legislators locally and in the state how it all works, because there are a lot of assumptions that were made, and there were a lot of assumptions made by agencies that they were going to go out of business, and some of the assumptions that were made, and these they really didn't come true, and but it took years to fight for, and it was definitely worth working with people who were so dedicated and meeting people from around the state and speaking to people around in other states to try to inform them. It meant so much. Anything else you want to say, Bill? Or?
Thank you so much, Tom. That was great. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your personal story with us. Okay. And thank you to Bill and Suzanne. I couldn't ask for it to have been any better. You know, now we get to have that history stay with us as this was recorded. And I don't think we've ever been able to have that before. And now that technology will allow us to do that, we'll have it for years to come. So thank you. I am going to pass the baton over to Patricia Brennan, who works at the state. She is the manager of the waiting list, as well as the new education team to educate on self-direction. And she has done an outstanding job in getting others to provide us their personal stories, which she will share with us shortly. Thanks, Tricia.
Thank you, Donna. So my name is Patricia Brennan. I am here to talk to you a little bit about self-direction and its evolution throughout the Division of Developmental Disabilities. So as we move forward in the future of self-directed services, we want to provide you about how it evolved in the state of New Jersey's Division of Developmental Disabilities. It started with the Family Support Act and then moved to Self-Determination Initiative in the late 1990s. And our service system delivery began to shift. Part of the impetus for this was the findings from the Developmental Disabilities Planning Institute regarding the fact that many families were not looking for residential placements or placements in the traditional day programs, but were on the priority waiting list for both day and residential services. At that time, the circular had the priority waiting list was for both day and residential services. People were using it for more of an insurance policy and not looking to have those types of supports. We're looking for more person-centered, community-based options to be available to folks. In the fall of 2002, I joined our central office staff to be part of the Governor's Inclusion Initiative team. And at that time, there were only 2 of us who were part of, besides division leadership, who were part of that team. In October 2002, I actually have old notes from that meeting. And there was a core group of family members that came to the division. And they wanted to discuss the governor's inclusion initiative and clearly stated that if they were provided the funding and the resources, that they could do a better job of self-directing the services and supports to meet the needs of the people that were served by the division. Our goal at that time was to listen and assist in establishment and implementation of new policies for systems change. From that point forward, we began to work in partnership with families, self-advocates, stakeholders, national experts, and many others to begin to move the system as people were reached on the priority waiting list, as they moved from school entitlement to our eligibility services through the division, as they're part of other pilot projects, and eventually we moved it to our fee-for-service system where we are today. So in order to share with all of you some of the rich history of self-direction in New Jersey, I'm going to present to you a series of videos from people who were there at the beginning to share with you their experiences and what it's like, and tell you about the journey and the road traveled to get us to where self-direction is today. So Javier, could you play us the video?
Hi everybody, this is Aaliyah De Silva and I'm Lorraine De Silva Lee, her mom. We'd like to start by talking about the history that New Jersey has with innovation and inclusion of families in the processes that impact the lives of people with developmental disabilities. Right, Leah? We started in 1993 with our advocacy around the Family Support Act. And we were one of the first families that were included in writing the regulations to that act. New Jersey has historically empowered families and people with disabilities. Then in 1996, 1997, we were invited to a meeting to hear about self-determination. And I took Aaliyah because I didn't think it applied to Aaliyah. Self-direction seemed like for people who could speak up for themselves. And since Aaliyah does not use words to speak, and yet she got a lot to say, I didn't think it applied to her. New Jersey had something called the Governor's Inclusion Initiative, which was a pilot program that we were involved in. And then in 2012, when we went to meetings around self-directed supports, it gave us the option to move Aaliyah from the family home. That transition was difficult, but yet we knew it was needed. She was able to move into her own place. This is her place. And she tells us with every ounce of her being how happy she is to come home every single day, to have that awareness that this is her place. She smiles, she sits up tall. She is incredibly happy with the music that's always playing, with the way that it smells. This is Aaliyah's home, make no mistake about it. As we've been going through this process, we have had so many memorable moments. And so a few that I want to share with you is the language, right? Self-directed services has a language all of its own, right, Leah? We know what fiscal intermediary means now, right? And what the heck are person-centered tools? Well, we know about that too. That's part of our everyday language. Realizing that there were so many people across the state who also wanted something different was another memorable moment for us. We were so happy to learn that we were not alone in what we had envisioned a life could look like for Leah. And the last memorable moment I want to leave you with is the opportunity to be able to identify staff based on characteristics that bring out the best in Aaliyah. Thank you so much, Carolyn. Thank you, April. Say bye, Leah.
My name is Mary Canua. I am a parent and advocate for people with developmental disabilities. My involvement with self-direction began with advocacy and system change that began over 22 years ago. My friend Monique Wilson, who worked for the Council on Developmental Disabilities, called one day and asked how things were going with my sons. Back then, children were registered with the division, and if you were fortunate then, when your kids were home, you got maybe 20 hours of respite a month. There were not many services and supports options for our kids that when they left the education entitlement too and entered the adult system. Monique pulled together a group of parents, a diverse group from all over the state, to meet with DDD leadership and tell our stories. We met in a large room. Over 30 families were there. One by one, we told our stories to the two ladies in DDD leadership, who at the time were Carol Grant and Kathy Palshow. They were gracious and listened to each and every one of us tell the challenges we face daily. And by the time we finished, those poor ladies looked like they were exhausted. They wanted to implement change, but we were all looking for, but it was a huge undertaking. So from that initial meeting, the core group of people were invited to the table to begin to plan system change. We had numerous meetings and stakeholder events. DDD partnered with individuals and families to create meaningful change. The state then brought in national and international leadership in person-centered planning and facilitation. Patty Scott, Michael Small, Mary Lou Bourne, Lynn Siegel, just to name a few of the many who came and basically trained parents, families, providers, whoever wanted to learn. I took person-centered thinking and planning training through the learning community, and it was life-changing. That mindset to support people, not fix them, empower them, not enable them, to focus on their gifts and abilities and address support needs tailored to the individual was what I had been looking for from my two sons with very different needs and challenges. It's what I've been looking for their whole lives. Individualized services and supports are to be designed for the person, not making the person fit the services. That's what person-centered planning and thinking and self-direction really is all about. Not making the person fit the service, but designing the service to fit the person with their preferences, wants, and needs. The person also was to be included in everything through the planning process, maintaining that plan and having ownership of it, having the ability to change it when needed, and the person in charge of the words being written about them, the services they want, and the life they choose to live. I leave you with one of the statements I heard over and over again then, and I hear it now. Nothing about us without us. That's what self-direction is truly all about. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie Trump, and I'm a family member. My daughter Marie was born with an intellectual and developmental disability. The history of self-direction began for me 20 years ago. I was invited by the Division of Developmental Disabilities, DDD leadership, Kathy Palshow and Carol Grant, to join a family group that would be working with them to create a systems change in New Jersey. This really piqued my interest. And why I came to the table was because the services that were being offered to Marie was not what she wanted. It was a siloed system, and Marie did not want a day program. She wanted something different for her life. I really appreciated DDD had always asked us for our input and suggestions, and this mighty family group worked hard, hand in hand with DDD, to change the system. Kathy asked me what Marie wanted, and I answered, give Marie a budget and we'll show you what we can create. And she did just that. We were committed to building a person-centered, self-directed system with choice, freedom, and responsibility. DDD had brought in national renowned person-centered thinking trainers, Michael Small, Mary Lou Bourne, as well as the mentor trainers from the Boggs Center. They provided trainings for individuals, families, DDD staff, and provider organizations, teaching us the skills and tools to build a person-centered, self-directed system based on people's interests, what was important to them and for them, their hopes and dreams, as well as how to best support them. Our family group wore many hats during the early 2000s. It was also when individual budgets were launched according to a person's assessed needs. Then a pilot program of self-direction began under the leadership of Dr. Susan Hammerman at the former University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey, UMDNJ, now Rutgers University. Many family group members became UMDNJ family consultants and certified support coordinators. Several family members from our group and DDD staff became person-centered thinking trainers, hosting training classes for all. We built the systems change one county at a time, doing orientation meetings for individuals and families, sharing our knowledge. They got to meet with their assigned support coordinator and DDD monitor who'd gather the information, creating a plan for their loved one. They were able to self-hire staff who could take their loved one out and about doing things they enjoyed and so much more. We traveled statewide getting non-disability services DDD qualified, giving people many service choices such as gyms, YMCAs, art, music, and college classes, things like that. Self-direction has been a life-changing experience for Marie and I. It has meant a great deal to me, and it is close to my heart. I had to change my thinking to create the life Marie wanted, and it began for her in 2005 when she received her transition budget, now a supports program budget. It has been a wonderful 17-year journey. Marie has a full community-based life. Yes, there were bumps in the road, and I know we can always rebuild and recreate this using self-direction, the person-centered tools, and her budget. I've proudly worked the past 20 years, as many family members have, doing this life-changing work, building a person-centered, self-directed system for all. Thank you.
My name is Ann Martinelli. My son Joe is almost 38 years old, and he began self-directing his supports and services in 2005 when he left the education system. The first time I heard the term self-direction was January 14th, 2004. Patty Scott of Neighbors came to my son's school to talk about life after 21. It was a meeting of about 15 families, and I took notes that day, still have them. The notes were so important to me. Some of the language that she used, the person-centered language that she used, was so empowering. I keep going back and looking at it, and I'm going to read some of those notes that I took. Stop measuring deficiencies. Start recognizing gifts. Stop trying to assess needs. What do they want? Stop categorizing and offering only what's available. Custom build for each person. Real people have choices. Help people have lives they can look back on happily. For me, person-centered thinking is the crux of self-direction. It's part of my soul. It's why I live and breathe it. And self-direction cannot occur without person-centered thinking. In the spring of 2005, at the Freehold DDD office, I met Joe's first support coordinator, and I was given what were then called information gathering sheets. And I gave them out to the people that worked with him at school, his friends, family members, and other people that knew him. And the reason these information gathering sheets were so successful is they used person-centered language. One of the most empowering questions to me was, what do you like and admire about Joe? And I learned that I may know Joe the best, but I don't know everything about him. And it still holds to this day. When those information gathering sheets came back to me, I learned so much about him. I learned that people liked and admired Joe as a person, not as someone with a disability that they worked with. During our journey of self-direction all these years, I've learned so much, made mistakes along the way, but it is part of me. Self-direction and person-centered thinking is part of me. There's two very important pieces when we're creating a life for someone, helping them create a life for themselves. What's important to them is just as important as what's important for them. So what's important to them is all the things they want to do, their hopes, their dreams. What's important for is the health and safety pieces that everyone needs to follow in order to keep them happy and healthy and safe. but there has to be a balance between the two. Also, throughout my journey with self-direction, I have found my advocacy voice. I've met other people, other families, met legislators, met at the governor's office, and I've been teaching all these years, been teaching others what it means to create a life of choice with their family member. And I just keep going back to these notes, and I want you to all remember that real people have real choices. Thanks for listening.
Tell me about the history of self-direction in New Jersey.
Wow. Well, the Family Support Act was signed into law in 1993, and the act made the Division of Developmental Disabilities responsible for creating a system of family support that is flexible, strengthens, and supports families at home, and empowers families to meet their loved ones' needs. You see, this act was about serving the person with a disability and the entire family. It also came on the belief that families are the best judges of what they need and not really leaving anyone out of the decision making. So around that time, cash option was a self-directed, a very small self-directed type of support. And we really like to thank all of those that came before us, that rallied and helped to get the Family Support Act signed into law. The waiting list crisis, not a new crisis. Self-determination began in New Jersey in 1997, and self-determination was offered to people as an option when families were, their number came up on the priority waiting list. They chose self-determination as a way to continue or to self-direct, to develop their own plans of services, determining where and with whom they would like to live. I was excited about this prospect and really inspired by the very brave individuals that really pioneered and set this pathway for all of us that come after them. I became a self-determination broker, and it was during this training that I really affirmed what I had already knew inherently inside within myself, that my son could have a life in the community with the right supports, regardless of the significance of his disabilities. New millennium, on the heels of the most important decision, the Olmsted decision into years 2000, parents and families rallied again. I'll never forget it. We kept saying, families can't wait. The waiting list was not offering the options that families really wanted. And people were merely on this waiting list trying to get very much needed supports just to keep our loved ones at home. These situations were creating premature and unwanted placements. So driven by the voice of families and spearheaded by DDD leaders that opened their ears, Jim Smith, Carol Grant, and Kathy Palcho. In 2001, the In-Home Supports Committee was created, and this committee made recommendations for in-home supports that would enable people with disabilities and their families even further choices. So we started moving from a system based on placement out of home to one based on where people live or choose to live. So by driving this need, in 2002, Real Life Choices was created. And it was created out of the desire to give people and their family members a strong voice and the power to make their own choices. Real Life Choices is a philosophy, not a program. And most of us still live by it today. Regardless of the name change, the philosophy must be upheld. Philosophy of people first. People and their families want to be able to make choices to support their lives and to create meaningful lives. So where are we now? My name is Monique Dujay-Wilson, and I'm an advocate for my son Kyrie and for all people with developmental and intellectual disabilities. I advocate for a system that meets the needs of people and families so that they can live meaningful lives. In 2004, Kyrie became the first recipient of Real Life Choices in New Jersey. As I mentioned, we are the people who were the waitlisters with significant challenges, yet just wanting to have supports to keep our family members at home and in the community. Now, at 36 years old, what is life like for Kyrie? Welcome to Kyrie's home. Kyrie now lives in his own home in the community with the supports that he needs. Now, it's not perfect. We're still in the trenches ensuring supports follow the trajectory of his lifespan, but it's 20 years of self-direction. I opened up the first Real Life Choices Self-Direction Conference 20 years ago with my co-hosts, Advocate Lauren Valenta, Assistant Commissioner Ken Ritchie, and CEO Patty Scott of Neighbors. So what's next? What do the next 20 years hold? Here's to meaningful lives.
So I want to thank everybody who participated and helped us along the way, and for sharing some of these videos with us, and just some of the journeys we've all had over these past 20 years, and moving forward to the next steps of where we're going and what's new for us. So you've heard this history of self-direction throughout New Jersey. And the next question is, what's going in the future? Where are we going, and what are the next steps? So to present to you the next steps, I'm honored to introduce to you Jonathan Seyfried, the Assistant Commissioner of the Division of Developmental Disabilities. Jonathan's decades-long career has been centered on serving individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities, and his strong commitment to person-centered practices and self-direction resonates as everyday practices. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Jonathan to talk to you about the future of self-direction for the Division of Developmental Disabilities.
Can you guys hear me okay? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome, welcome everyone. As Trish said, I'm John Seyfried, Assistant Commissioner at the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities, and I'm honored to have been invited here today to speak with you all, and I'm humbled by all of the panelists today. The experiences described and relayed for Mary, Natalie, Monique, Lorraine, and others that aren't panelists today are invaluable to us. They let us know how far we've come, but also that we need to go farther. This system is constantly evolving, and we need to make sure that we never get to a point where we say, we're good enough. We always have to make sure that we're striving to move forward. I started here at the division in 2001 when self-direction was new and still getting its legs. And it's amazing to see how it's grown over the years and to hear directly from those who spearheaded its formation. It's truly a humbling experience to be here today. There's nothing more powerful than speaking to individuals with different abilities and their families to really hear how things are impacting them. And we find it very helpful here over at the division and the Department of Human Services to make sure that we are listening and really steering the system in a way that's meaningful for both the individuals that receive services and the families they rely on. So as you've seen, self-directed services offered by the division have a rich history in advocacy and partnership, and they have been constantly evolving over the last 20 plus years. Examples of things that we have done to improve things that I think help lay groundwork for future changes are really listening to people, evaluating, understanding where the challenges are, improving on those, and then again, revising as we move forward. So I know that some of the other panelists have spoken about the waiting list and, the late 90s, early 2000s with things. One of the areas that we did do to, help improve, self-direction and others, people that choose other types of services, was we implemented a new home community-based services waiver program in addition to the community care program called the supports program. That program was critical and remains critical to this day, as it allows every person eligible for DDD services, not enrolled on the community care program, to be on that waiver and benefit from the assignment of a support coordinator, an individual budget, and be able to select their services. Prior to the supports program, we only had the community care program. And I know a lot of you will remember it was in the mid 2010s, we changed the name to community care program, but it was the CCW, the community care waiver. So that meant, without the supports program, thousands of people that were receiving services from the division had a very limited set of services. I know that Mary mentioned, maybe respite monthly, but that was about it. This moved the division forward to address that, so that everyone under services could have the same type of access to services. Another area that we did that supports self-direction, that we want to make sure we continue to nurture and support, is choice and care manager through support coordination. That's another change that we implemented to support persons with different abilities. It's much more flexible for those that remember than the previous system of state-assigned case management. As if an individual wanted to change their care manager, there was much less choice back then. Now we offer much more flexibility. And in that system, if somebody wants to change their support coordinator, they're calling that care management, they can do that. And there are choices of support coordination agencies in New Jersey, and we continue to nurture that support and service because it is a linchpin within the system. We also late last year increased the rate paid for support coordination, because we did recognize as time had progressed that we needed to do some adjustments to that rate to make sure that that was adequately compensated. So we were happy to have success in doing that. We also moved towards the publication of program manuals for our community care program and our supports program. Those provide written standards around service provision and budget allocation. And before that, the division did not have written manuals. The CCW was available online, but it wasn't necessarily the friendliest document in the world. Again, it only applied to the people that were enrolled in that. So if you were not on that program, it, really, as Mary said, respite was something. There were some cash option pieces, but now we're able to offer a more robust service menu for people that are looking to self-direct, or use provider managed services. We've also been able to offer increased choice of provider and the ability of a person to more freely design, for example, their employment and day services. They can also more easily change the services they receive as their needs change throughout their lifespan, which is key. Because just as anybody, will change throughout life, and their needs are going to adjust. Sometimes you're going to need more supports, sometimes less supports, and sometimes different supports. And there needs to be that ability to adjust things. And that's another area, as we've moved into the new system that we have to do better with and make sure that we're continuing to sharpen things. But we are able to adjust services in a way that was not possible 15 years ago. The division also actively engages with stakeholders around our manual updates and other policy decisions. We find this to be a very important aspect of things, and we've learned from our predecessors who helped spearhead self-direction, and want to make sure we keep that line of communication open. Some of those changes that we've done, we've added flexibility around parent, spouse, or guardian to be able to be a self-directed employee. We got feedback from those people that self-direct and others in the system that budget flexibility is needed. So we did look in our latest manual iterations at adding some increased budget flexibility around our certain services, goods and services, environmental modifications, and vehicle modifications. These areas can have higher per service costs than other services. So we wanted to make sure there was an ability that if there was funding left in another portion of the budget, that wasn't the individual family supports line, that could be accessed. And we continue to analyze things and talk to people and get feedback to see how we can involve further in that area and others. We've also streamlined the DDD eligibility applications, allowing persons already receiving services through the children's system of care to not have to present all their eligibility paperwork a second time at DDD. We know that moving into the system, moving out of the educational system into the adult system is stressful. There's a lot of things that are different. And we also know, and I know that Trish touched on this as well as some of the other speakers, that people coming into the system are really looking for, personalized services, self-directed services, not looking for necessarily the traditional, 5-day-a-week day program. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not one size fits all. And people have to be able to adapt and adjust their services in a way that works best for them. Also, finally, just as another example of service adjustments, with the advent of the new waivers, supports program, community care program, we were able to add services to help keep people at home. We were able to add occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy to our waiver programs as habilitative services. Previously, they were only available as rehabilitative services through insurance, and that did not provide the best environment for somebody to maintain their abilities. So we were happy to be able to make those adjustments. Moving on to some other areas related to supporting self-direction and that speak to our future and how our trajectory and where we're going is in 2019, the New Jersey Division of Developmental Disabilities joined 19 other states in the National Community of Practice for Supporting Families and adopted the Charting the Life Course framework. This is made possible through a robust and close partnership with the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities and the Boggs Center. The Community of Practice was established to build statewide capacity to better assist and support families that include a person with an intellectual and developmental disability across their lifespan. Our goal as a member state is for people with with disabilities and their families to be empowered to communicate their vision for a good life, and for professionals and systems to ask the questions, listen, and act on strategies to help them reach their vision of what life that they're looking for. The Charting the Life Course framework was created to help individuals and families of all abilities and all ages develop a vision for a good life. Think about what they need to know and do, identify how to find or develop supports, and discover what it takes to live the lives that they want. The framework is the keystone for supporting a community of learning that champions transformational change through knowledge exchange, capacity building, and collaborative engagement. Another adjustment that we've made is our expansion of the agency with choice self-directed employee fiscal intermediary model. This was previously open to persons converting from our interim system to the fee-for-service system. As of February of this year, it is now available to all persons served by DDD who choose to use self-directed employees. And this is in addition to the current the model, the vendor fiscal employer agent self-directed employee model administered by public partnerships. Having these two models provides another layer of choice so that people can choose to self-direct and select the model that works best for them. I should note that both Easter Seals, who operates agency with choice, and PPL, who operates the vendor fiscal employment agent model, are here today as partners in this conference, and we're thankful for all they do to support people with different abilities in the state. Recognizing that some persons who self-direct may need additional support to be successful in that, the division's placed additional focus on the service called sports brokerage. Sports brokerage has been available for some time, but was not widely used. This service can provide assistance to an individual or family who chooses to self-direct to make it more accessible. They can help with things, hiring staff, managing timesheets, etc. We embarked to provide more education on sports brokerage to different stakeholders and work more closely with those who provide the service. Sports brokerage is now being used throughout the state so that people and families can have assistance in arranging for, directing, and managing the supports and services that work best for them. And we're very excited and pleased to announce today that we are officially launching, and the announcement is at this conference today, our newly established Office of Education on Self-Directed Services. The office is led by Patricia Brennan, who introduced me and has spoke, at different times during the conference today. And it was created based on stakeholder feedback that to best support self-direction in New Jersey, we need a centralized place for education and training so that people can make informed decisions. There are people that know how to self-direct, but for people that are trying to learn more about it, it was really having to go to, this support coordinator or this family member or one of the speakers today who's really done it. And we wanted to make sure that self-direction is something that is accessible to everyone and that you don't have to have, an inside list of people to talk to be able to make that work. So we're very excited for that. We know Trish is so passionate about self-direction, and we're very excited about it, and we're launching that today. The website's live on the division website under individuals and families. We have links now to the Office of Education on Self-Directed Services. We have a dedicated page to supports brokerage as well. And we have even updated our self-directed services webpage as well to streamline that, to make it hopefully more streamlined in terms of, knowing the different choices of fiscal intermediaries, the requirements for self-directed employees, the requirements for supports brokers, et cetera, to really help support this and get self-direction, to its next stage of evolution in New Jersey. So the division is committed to person-centered practices in all service delivery so that all people have the right to live, love, work, play, and pursue their aspirations in their community in the way that works for them. We aspire to adapt even more person-centered practices and self-directed opportunities throughout the service system as we move forward. So I want to thank you all for your time, your advocacy, and your passion to ensure that persons with disabilities have a choice to self-direct. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone. I want to remind everyone that March 10th, we kick off our self-direction conference, and we hope that you can all join us, and we will send out the information from this session and include the link to register for all of the different sessions that we're going to have. I don't know about you, but my heart is full. I think the theme of this conference is we are all in this together, really reign true throughout everything that I heard today. So I just want to thank, Suzanne and Bill and Tom, Patricia Brennan for getting the families together and really, pulling on everybody's heartstrings to really understand how far we've come, as a community, and how much hard work went into all of this before us. And just want to thank, John for joining us as well, to share with us, the challenges, the evolution, the successes. It's just, I think it's been a great session. Javier, are we going to open up the chat at this time?
Yes, we'll open it.
I'm sorry?
I said, yes, we can open it. Give me 1 second.
Okay. So I know this meeting goes to 1, so we could open up the chat for any questions, but please just keep in mind that no personal information. If you can keep it general, that would be great.
All right, the chat is open.
Now, Javier, I don't see it, so So John, this sounds like a question for you or Patricia. What is the purpose of the Office of Self-Direction?
I'd like to give it over to Trish.
Sure, it's to provide education and assistance, technical assistance to anybody who is seeking it throughout as stakeholders. So we will be able to provide education to whoever is seeking it for us. And if there are special cases that need technical assistance through the division, we'll be able to do that as well. We're seeing that a lot of folks are needing additional support to really understand what this means. And we're also going to be working with and partnering with CLEP. So I'm looking at my screen at Natalie and Ann, but we're going to be partnering with the Community Living Education Project to have some networking meetings so families can start to share again and really, talk about where the resources are. And so self-advocates can share the different pieces and where they're self-directing and how they're self-directing. And we can really get people's minds turning and helping each other to be in the driver's seat along the way.
There's a question there that I think, is probably going to have some personal information to it. So maybe Trish for Miss Yates, you could take down her information.
Oh,
and,
sure. Sorry, I'm
connect with
just looking at the chat now.
Sure.
Tricia, this is Marion. Yeah, let us know how. I mean, it looks like some of these questions, I mean, obviously all of them are very important and we thank people for raising them. Some of them sound like it might be better with post-conference kind of more individualized follow-up, but we'll follow your lead on this. Just let us know how to best, how you want us to best respond.
Sure. So what I can also tell you is that we do have an email address that was now officially, as of just now, we have an email address for our new Office of Self-Directed Education, and I can put that in to everyone to email. I'm going to send this to everyone to our new email address. I have it right here. And so if you have additional questions about what it is that we can do to help you or looking to self-direct, you can send them directly to us. And we have a team now. So we're extremely excited to have staff that can, help out and provide technical assistance for focusing on support brokerage, focusing on different parts of the state, focusing on, different stages of people's lives, different parts of the community, and really getting out and working with stakeholders and making sure that everyone knows that self-direction is an option for everybody. That, it isn't just going out and we aren't just a provider-based system, that you have the choices. If you want to be in the driver's seat, you have the choices and we can help you facilitate that next step. A lot of times people ask, I want to self-direct, but I don't know how to do it. And we'll be able to help guide you to that next piece and educate you as to what the pieces that need to be in place so you can get to that next step, which is one of the goals of our new office.
Thanks, Tricia. I also think that, this session, and it was indeed wonderful. Thank you to all the presenters and people who recorded themselves. It was a lot of work and it came off beautifully. So thank you. But I think some of the questions that are coming through in the chat, these are the things that we really are gearing up to address as part of the actual conference, which will run throughout March, with the first session being launched on March 8th. So you will have information on that. Once you see, and perhaps Javier, we can kind of just do a quick review before we end today of just some of the sessions that our conference planning committee and our conference agenda committee, because there were several teams that worked on this. So there was a lot of input from those of you who are living this life. And so the sessions really are, we've tried to really tailor them. We're inviting speakers who can speak from lived experience. And we're creating panels so that there can be interaction and dialogue and real life stories. I think for me, that's a lot of which shined through today, was the importance of hearing from people living the life and people who have helped to make this happen and continue to make it happen as part of the system. So keep those questions coming, and hopefully you'll be able to also attend some of the or all of the sessions throughout March.
And just to add to that, some of the sessions that are going to be happening, there's one in which we're going to be talking about some of the trying the life course learning tools and how they can be utilized so that we can better enhance a person figuring out what their next steps and their trajectory are and how they can utilize the integrated support star. There's also going to be one on selecting services, one on support brokerage, managing your SDs. We're going to have some really great conference, topics where people can really learn from others who have been there and doing that, and also know that, we do have this new email address and we can work towards, really educating the various stakeholders and to use the guiding tools to really help people in benefiting their responsibilities of self-directing their services. So we're really going to be engaging now that we have a whole team of people that can help go through this process so that people can be better educated for the next steps.
Great, Javier. Thank you. Do you want to just kind of roll through? You've been working really hard with the.
Sure, everyone. I just want to make sure that you're aware that starting after we're done here, this March program is going to continue. We're going to be adding additional information to really put additional meat on the bones of this program. But as you can see, it really starts exactly with what Marion was stating. Is really about sharing information about sort of what does it take to do effective self-direction from the perspective of the people who are living it on a day-to-day basis. So starting with the components of self-direction, it'll be a live panel presentation where you'll be hearing from all of the different stakeholders, including self-advocates, families, employers, supports coordinators, supports brokers, and our fiscal intermediaries, PPL, and Easter Seals. It'll be an opportunity just to hear from their perspective, what is the role that they play in self-direction. We'll move on to components of self-direction, which really takes a little deeper dive into that, into each of those roles that I just discussed. And participants will be able to hear from each of those individuals during different sessions, which will go from 12 to 5 p.m. that day. We'll be able to hear more in-depth, more details about what does it mean to implement those services. On March 15th, the sustaining self-direction is really the focus around how does one build on what self-direction offers you. That includes how do you use natural supports in one's community to really build out those services, or rather to give those, to how to utilize those services in a way that's meaningful to the person in terms of meeting the goals and their aspirations. So we'll have our friends from some of the supports brokerages to assist us in thinking about how do you build a circle of support? How do you use natural resources, natural supports in your community? How do you do a community scan, for example, to understand what does the community have to offer the person and what role can the person play in their community? On March 22nd, it's diving deep. So we will go into even more detail from the different stakeholders around how do you work with brokerages? How do you use the life course? How do you use person-centered planning, such as the life course? We have our colleagues at Rutgers who will be leading that, along with our friends at DDD. In addition to that, finally on March 24th, it's called Your Turn Asking the Questions. So we will have sessions set up as breakouts where participants will have the opportunity to have to ask questions and interact directly with each of the different stakeholders that you have been hearing from during the rest of this conference. That's an opportunity to ask detailed questions around how do things work? How do we address particular issues and challenges? It's not necessarily a time to ask specific personal questions about personal issues or challenges that you might be having, but it's really around understanding how does one work best together and how do all these pieces fit together. And finally, we'll have a closing keynote by a self-advocate who will wrap this up. And we hope that ultimately that this conference offers everyone not only to reinvigorate everyone in regard to self-direction, but also highlights the amazing work that has been done over the past and what is now at DDD and in this community to support self-direction, so that people who living with disabilities and their families in New Jersey can lead the lives that they want to lead. So I'm here to answer any questions by email or via the collaborative and around the conference. But I'm going to invite you all to look out for additional information that will be coming out in the next few days.
Thanks, Javier. Tricia or Donna, any closing thoughts?
I mean, I just want to thank everybody for participating and for letting us share this journey along the way and hear the history, and for those who've been participating with us for the past 20 years. And I'm excited for the future.
Awesome. Well, I will end then by thanking in particular the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities, without whom we would not be here today. The Collaborative for Citizen Directed Supports New Jersey wrote for a grant, and in the midst of a global pandemic, the council took the time and felt it important enough to fund this grant that brought together the various stakeholders to plan this conference. And so we thank them for their generosity in funding, and also for their belief in the collaborative and their support for promoting and advancing self-direction. I want to thank all of the speakers and the panelists. Again, what a wonderful session. I think the questions that have been prompted as a result of this are incredibly important. And we, well, obviously the session is recorded, so we as conference planners will also take these questions that have put into the chat, and we'll make sure as we continue to refine the agenda for the March sessions that we get responses to these questions, or we connect you with the people that can help you. As Donna said at the very beginning, we're in this together. Nothing is going to be perfect. Monique, I think you said that too, and I think you said it brilliantly. Life is sometimes best in the chaos, and having the people around you who know and love you and care about you unconditionally. And I think that was really the goal over that cup of coffee. Was Donna and I trying to solve what we thought were a few issues with the organizations that we work for. And out of that commitment to work together and to collaborate came this idea. And so many, well, each and every one of you have just helped to bring it to life, because your participation is critical. It really wouldn't mean much if we had a conference and nobody was sitting here. So we appreciate greatly all of the things that you do in your everyday lives that then lead to these lessons that can be shared across the system. So thank you to everybody for taking the time and for what you're doing every minute of every day. We appreciate you and look forward to seeing you all in a few short weeks. Thank you.